All right, ladies and gentlemen, welcome, welcome, welcome. Okay, this is your AstroShaman, Pernell Bobby. We are here generating an economy of harmony, leveraging human designed astrology. Today, we're going to talk about a Gene Key 64. Gene Key 64 is currently active during this full moon, happening at 16 degrees. Now, what's Gene Key 64? What's human design? What's astrology? How are we combining the three? Okay. Gene Key 64 is actually related in the physical body to the pineal gland. So when we think Pisces, all the energy in the sky is going opposite of the moon right now. For everybody watching on replay, I just want to say thank you for being here. Thank you for hitting the thumbs up as we get deeper into this message. Thank you for being here. Thank you for hitting the thumbs up. Thank you for watching this on Rewind. I see you. You're really the main support, not even the people that ever watch us live. Truly, it's the people watching the replay. So I want to take a time to feel into that message and say such things to you. And this is a little bit how we're going to get into Gene Key 64 on this Virgo full moon. So full moons, as we all know, are illuminations. They're enlightenments, generally in the area of Virgo in your chart. Earlier on my channel, I gave an example. Watch the short of, what happens if your Virgo's in the fourth house, or what's your Virgo in the moon, or your Virgo's in Venus. Like that area of your chart is what's going to come to an illumination. Great. Prior, you're going to also notice that area in your chart, you were confused about something. At one point, the confusion is the mind talking. It's the mind hearing itself talk to itself. And that becomes an endless biofeedback loop. You understand what I just said? The mind is listening to itself, talk to itself. This is Virgo, where this is a very natural process. This has never been bad. This has never been wrong. This is Mercury, where Virgo is home, where Virgo is in its exaltation on top of that, able to witness every single thought and allow the thought to be. Now, what happens is we don't listen to our thoughts. We don't allow our thoughts to be. So what do we get as a end result? When we don't listen to our thoughts, what we're really doing is we're hiding and we're masking when we only listen to our thoughts over and over and over on repeat, what we're doing is we're masking our pain. We're repressing our creativity. That's why this topic today is called divine creativity. People always notice Pisces, the opposite counterpart, as a symbol of divinity, a symbol of creation, a symbol of imagination, a symbol of illumination in the crown chakra. We all know Pisces for this. But again, as above, so below, as within, so without, you can't think that Virgo is any less creative or that it struggles in places and symbols like Venus because it's being overly critical. It's thinking too much. It's judging everything so much that it doesn't allow itself to be creative. No, it's not that simple. Pisces may get there one way, Virgo may get there the other way. And this is what the 64th gate is showing you. Pisces has one way to get to divinity, and Virgo has a different way to get to divinity. Neither way is more divine. That within itself would be an attachment to a thought and to a concept that one is more or less divine than each other. That within itself is already a part of us listening to the mind have a conversation with itself. So gate 64 is helping us realize that confusion itself is not something to get stuck on or be confused by, rather than to witness aimlessly without attachment, being willing to become aware of this thing and even naturally judge it. But when we move from the stage of judgment to criticism, now we start messing with the creativity that Virgo is wired to express its most extravagant thoughts through. So what I'm saying is when we create a poem, when we create a masterpiece of art, when we create a new song and if we just allow ourselves to blow and we allow either one or two things, the constant and everyday work ethic to grow and build us there, or we take the shadow aspect of Virgo and we allow a complete and divine surrender. Likely we're allowing a little bit of both. Okay, because it is one of the same sign. It is the tail of the dragon's head. It is the dragon's head, you know, being connected to the tail. They're the same thing. And they both are representing the spaces of divinity. So when we can accept that Virgo's way of getting there is to consistently work or push, you know, in the Gene Key 64 speaks about, you know, yoga, allowing us to progress towards enlightenment. And it speaks differently about, right, Tantra being about more divine surrender. One is completely and absolutely still and it reaches the divine, and one works forever and hard and stays so disciplined that it reaches enlightenment through that pure force and consistent action. I don't even want to say pure force, but just consistent action in a manner that is just in flow, but still working, but in flow. This is Virgo and Pisces. The opposition is here to show us that our confusion is a means for hiding our pain. That's how we repress our deepest fears to create something that will ultimately speak through our artwork and illuminate our peers, socially speaking. Thank you for that thumbs up from Facebook. I respect you. I appreciate you. Everybody else hit the thumbs up as well as I take a little sip of water. Yo, I'm telling you, this is the full moon in Virgo. And it's so much freaking more magical than any of us will be able to realize. The key with this gate 64 is to allow the shadow. See, when we stay positively toxic, and by means, if you will, and we don't allow our shadow and stop criticizing anything, any zodiac sign, any person, any animal, any coffee barista, any tea, any tree, any plant, any country, any language. All of this is the different areas of life that Virgo covers. Why? Because Virgo is the mind, and Virgo is covering the daily consistent things that are happening in our everyday waking reality. Everything that is happening in the infinite space of ether, aka Pisces, in the beyond, in the astral, in the dream plane, in the lucid, in the fog, is happening down here with some simple equivalent counterpart, aka on Earth, in this tangible, physical, 3D dense reality. Everything. That mirror is so incomprehensible that we forsake the beauty that happens everywhere and all around life. The beauty in this particular instance is respecting that confusion, the shadow of this 64th gate, which you see on the cover of this video that made you click the button. The shadow of confusion itself is a prerequisite to creativity. Now, how do we move from this? We move to the gift frequency in the 64th gate. And the gift frequency is saying something more like imagination. All right. So imagination has two main things about whether it's being repressed, our imagination, or whether it's being reactive. A repressed imagination is a lot of times when we begin to shadow ourselves, humble ourselves so much that we step away from our roles in society and the work that we're here to do in service. And what this looks like is taking a mentor, taking something that you're learning from a person, likely um, learning through everyday actions that happen in the world. We are learning from them and we're imitating them. We're copying and pasting. We're taking how our parents intellectually deal with their deepest and most repressed pains, and we're imitating it because then we don't shine outwardly. We don't externalize our pain. And by internalizing it at such a deep and profound level, we essentially become a duplicate or a replica. And we forget our lessons that Leo taught us about what it means to shine on and perform for ourselves, where others just get to watch, not because we're looking to gain attention. So it's literally dimming yourself down so much in Virgo at the shadow frequency of this imagination, or we're suppressing our imagination, the gift here, that we just act like other people so we don't shine. Okay, great. This is your people in your workspace. This is even acting like your pet. I'm not kidding you. Like Virgo is the pet house. This is acting like your pet, your dog, your cat, your turtle, your animal, or recognizing and you're learning through that animal, that dog, that turtle, that raccoon. What are the human behaviors that this animal is teaching you? So an animal will teach you, oh, you're codependent. Great. An animal will teach you, oh, you can't stop moving and rest and sit down. Great. An animal will teach you that you talk too much and you're not listening enough. Great. Whatever it be, hit the thumbs up, ladies and gentlemen. Thank you for being here on this Virgo full moon message. Now, that's one side what happens when we repress our imagination. Now, what happens when we have an overreactive imagination? Essentially, this is where, for gate 64 in human design, we're starting to become and play the victim role. This is us externalizing the victimizing process, or us being the victim of the world. We look at what the world looks like on the status quo on a day-to-day. What is everybody doing around us? What are we learning from everybody that's learning all the same things? And now we begin to, in a sense, hate that so much because we are either, we began repressed, and then from repression, they'll oftentimes move over to, baby, it's okay. You okay? What's going on? My baby wants attention. Okay, so give me 10 minutes. All right. So what happens if we now become reactive in the world and we externalize our imagination in its format where we're not allowing the imagination and we're allowing the confusion to override and not allow our pain to surface? Okay, this is what I mean. Like when we stop over intellectualizing, we allow our pain to surface. And when our pain surfaces, we can now collect light from that pain, integrate the shadow from that pain, and allow it to speak and create and imagine the world through something that a peer, a coworker of ours, a pet of ours can essentially here on earth create what is possible from only the astral plane, your dreams above and beyond. This is the frequency where we embrace that confusion is not something to fear. It is not something to demonize. To allow ourselves to be confused is to allow ourselves to imagine a world like Alice in the Wonderland and beyond. Thank you for that thumbs up. And this is Virgo, happy full moon. This is Virgo, when it begins to progress out of its neurotic stage where it's focusing on perfectionism. Even the word perfectionism itself is a lower frequency of how we have imitated other people, because one person said that Virgo was about perfectionism, and then 5 people said Virgo was about perfectionism. And then next thing you know, every astrologer's absolute terminology for Virgo is a sign about perfectionism. And it's just a simple gaze of laziness. If we really get serious, it's like by not truly understanding the frequencies of Virgo with no crap on anybody else, we all just start to believe that Virgos are about perfectionism rather than to question the status quo with facts, with objective analysis. That is what allowing the confusion can start to birth within us. But instead of allowing the confusion, like I said, the repression of it is to imitate the next person. It's like, okay, I'm not going to allow confusion, because if I allow confusion, then my pain will stay, it won't stay buried, and it will come to the surface, and I will have to experience that pain, but I don't want to. Now, otherwise, it's over externalizing and being reactive, like I was saying before, over externalizing and being reactive to I'm the victim, or playing the victim role. And what that looks like is hating everything in the world and overly criticizing it because you have forsaken your creative imagination. And that's a very individual process that truthfully has nothing to do with anybody else, yet and still it does. Because it's only through the interaction and engagement of everyone else do we get to see the reflection of how our minds have been wired to avoid pain. So the imagination is the gift frequency here, as you see on the cover. And we're going to move to the Siddhi frequency. And this is truly where we start understanding why Virgo has one of the 3 gates in the crown chakra in human design. There's only 3 gates in the crown. This is universal understanding. This is truly never being angry at the divine, which now is an overreactive crown. How many Virgos have you seen become mad at God? Well, they're mad at God because one of the natural shadow frequencies of an overactive crown chakra is to be angry at the divine. To literally say, why me, God? This is the 64th gate. If you have Virgo energy, it's likely you might have it, especially if you're anywhere near 16 degrees, which this Virgo full moon is on. So this is impacting the entire world right now. Whether you have this gate or not, doesn't even matter. If you have this gate, it will be even more enlightened to everything that I'm saying right now and just blow your mind. If you don't have this gate, you fully understand it while Mercury is currently in Pisces, Saturn is currently in Pisces, and these 2 energies are allowing us to hear the frequencies behind the wall. When you put this at the 16th degree, which is the private space of our well-being, the private space of our emotional and mental health, this is showing through analyzation, this Virgo full moon, what is the simple facts? Allowing ourselves to sit there and rest and enjoy being confused, because being confused is how we allow ourselves to imagine something greater. This is how we get into the Siddhi frequency of illumination. Because now in the crown chakra, we illuminate and just understand the truths that be. And that is often by no longer listening to what people are saying verbally and what they're pronouncing or how they're pronouncing the words, but listening to the vibration of what people are saying. The vibration of what people are saying is where Mercury in Pisces, which is considered detriment or exile, is now in this falling place. Yet and still, Mercury in Pisces is not in its fall. Why? Because a Mercury in Pisces allows the cells to be fogged up and confused and lost and not knowing where they're going and just completely like going like this, la la la, throughout life and truly never really attaching to any thoughts. That's a Mercury in Pisces, which they say is in its fall while Virgo is in its exaltation. Now, for Virgo to be in its true exaltation opposite of Pisces, it needs to accept that the confusion it is experiencing, much like its shadow self or light body, Pisces, their light body, Pisces, or their shadow body. It truly does not matter. If anything, I feel Virgo was actually the light body, and Pisces is the shadow frequency. Virgo is actually the light body, and Pisces is the shadow frequency, though they both have access to the divine and or dark feminine. And this essentially, the confusion is what allows us to bury ourselves deep into hell, deep into Hades, where Venus now has its fall. AKA another place, oh my God, I hate having a Venus in Virgo. No, you don't. You do not know how to operate a Venus in Virgo frequency. Because if you did, you would understand that that confusion that you have to dig down into the mental prison of the mental body, which is deep within Hades or the hell that we experience from our mind completely being like a monkey grabbing and biting and scratching its own tail, curious and wondering, what is this thing? This is how many mentors or master, which is why Virgo is mastery. This is how many mentors or masters will now teach their apprentice by giving them something to be confused with and by. Because within that confusion, what can we not do? We cannot think, in a sense, intelligently, and the fog takes over. And that allows us to tap into Neptunian energy of spirituality. I gotta pause so you can catch up to what I just said. Gotta pause so you can catch up to what I just said and hit the thumbs up. This, like a Venus in Virgo, for example, to help you understand this Virgo full moon message in this case 64, Venus in mythology had to dig down in hell, much the way that we think Scorpio does, but Scorpio is just digging deep enough where it's at the pits. Virgo is down in hell. It is looking at demons. This is Kali in Hindu culture, Kali. eye, who has chopped off the heads of all the demons she has faced, and they continue to grow back and even grow stronger until she finally chops their head off. The head that's being chopped off in this instance are the thoughts, us trying to stop our thoughts rather than allow the confusion. The shadow frequency, like all the gates in human design, is necessary for the Siddhic frequency to activate. You cannot activate the lightest, brightest form of it without embracing the shadow and also understanding what is the middle plane so you can understand. And it's not even necessary to understand. But what I was going to say is so you can understand where you are in the process. But the whole thing behind this confusion is you don't need to understand. You don't need to understand. That's the most beautiful part about this. But whatever, to finish the story, Venus is in hell making love with his demons. When we begin to sit with the confusion, this is where our imagination is formed. We now begin to make love with our demons. This ultimately allows us to embrace the light of illumination, where we have these moments of enlightenment. And like I said a little bit earlier, there are two ways to get here: through working in all these mutable areas of our daily lifestyles and our health and our habits within our mental body and our mental hygiene. How well do we cleanse our mind from repetitive thoughts and patterns that we imitate to repress our pain? And then on the opposite side, absolute stillness, absolute surrender. Wherever you go, you go. You don't think about where you're going. You're just going, and you don't understand how you're going to get there. You just allow yourself to get there. You don't overthink the process. Pisces, and you just surrender. And the best possible outcome will manifest itself because you've allowed confusion to reveal. This is why Pisces are the ones who end and surrender to pain. They literally end karma and the final pain that we'll experience at its depth in Scorpio, but at its greatest frequency in Pisces, because Pisces is fully attuned with all of its pains. Pisces does not run from its pain. It is allowing itself to be confused enough to experience the pain so it doesn't try to over intellectualize the pain that it is feeling. And through those biggest and most painful moments, the illumination frequency is born on the 64th gate, aka this full moon, which now says something simple like this: our pain is how we get to our light. The example used, at least in the human design book, is to have a coal, which a coal actually has a diamond inside the coal. But if you just see all this coal up front and you consider it all trash, essentially embrace this darkness that you're in, you might just brush off a coal and realize this coal, this piece of black charcoal, is actually a diamond in the rough. So now this diamond in the rough that you had to go through a certain form of darkness or formlessness of darkness, both Virgo and Pisces, you now have this diamond, which you essentially had to cut heads off and swallow your enemies to integrate them deeply in the belly. The belly is Cancer, the womb, 16th degree, which is the right now. This allows us to communicate in an art form that actually calms the people and the peers around you rather than be irritable in the way that everyone believes Virgo is. Virgo truly is, when it evolves, not an irritable master, teacher, healer, but one who brings calm to the mind and allows creativity at its highest form through the opposite end of Pisces rather than just la 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 la, diligently and progressively working in these different areas of life, in these different areas of confusion, to essentially surrender to the fog. And once that happens, creativity is born at the highest levels, where you might only see a picture of a plant with your physical senses. You might only touch the grain that gives you a little high. But when you sense through the subtle and the causal bodies outside the physical form, what was the artist portraying through this particular painting, you'll realize that there's an entire journey of a story where this imagination has revealed the Nile River passing through King Tut's land of the Sahara Desert, bringing us to this full fruition of a story of how humanity was created with this little plant at the one corner of the thing. You feel me? It becomes this grand story where the message, if you just physically try to align to what logically the plant looks like it is, just looks like a plant, and you're not seeing it, you miss the art of some of what people consider the greatest, being Picasso or Van Gogh. It's like these people, when they literally look at the names of their work, it's called the blue period. The blue period, a period full of depression and pain and anxiety and grief. It is Virgo analyzing and seeing all of this confusion, and through that, realizing that each frequency of something so terribly painful also has the opposite counterpart of pure light that will heal through the same artistry. That's the message. Beyond that, I have a more analytical Virgo formal message. It's about, I don't know, 20 minutes. This is a 26-minute live one. God's message, because essentially this is the last gate. This is the last 64th gate in the crown chakra of understanding. This is the illumination factor. This is the Siddhi frequency. This is the God frequency, where eventually you surrender the body as a whole. When you hit these forms of enlightenment, which is rare for Virgo to do, but absolutely it is not possible. It's not impossible. My sister has a Virgo 12th house, and I see her able to hit this frequency because the amount of confusion in her life, it is what it is. But when she taps into that confusion, she understands how to operate her Virgo in the 12th house, Virgo in the house of Pisces. You can imagine what will happen. But I also understood when I was younger that it wasn't going to be until she was at least 31 that this journey, 32 years of age, that this journey would even begin. So what I'm saying is when you hit these high frequency, the Siddhi frequency of illumination, essentially Virgo and Pisces has to do with karma. You no longer cease to reincarnate in a physical form rather than in some godly form of an essence or soul, a spirit, some sort of a guide. You no longer can house a physical body, which Virgo happens to be, the physical body, and how we take care of it. So if we take care of it, and when I say physical body, we must include the mental body, which is housed in the unit of the physical body or a part of. The mental body is Virgo's body, as well as the physical body, both. This is essentially when we can surrender this physical body, we then upgrade ourselves, if you consider it that, because it's not necessary to say upgrade, but we then evolve into the causal body, or what is considered the soul. The same thing, causal body or the soul, beyond the third dimensional realm. This is Virgo's illumination, where it is able to allow God to speak through it as it humbly surrenders its identity. So Leo is the identity and this strong, bold, courageous sense of attachment, even to identity, where we are focusing through surrender of that right when we get to Virgo. And the same frequency happens for Aquarius working towards Pisces. It is the surrendering of what is our particular role and how we're here to heal or evolve humanity or consciousness or push karma on a collective or unconscious scale, how we're here to evolve that karma. It is when we essentially surrender the self, or surrender the attachment to any one thought, aka we no longer are in this biofeedback loop of our greatest pain being our mind itself. And this is the irony of it. Like our greatest pain that we're running from allowing ourselves to be confused about that heartbreak and about, this guy who broke your heart or this woman who cheated on your husband. It's like by us not allowing ourselves to surrender to that, we're not recognizing that we are becoming the biofeedback loop of our parents who have the same thought process where, oh my God, my mom painted my baby bedroom this soft white magenta pink. And when I become 40 years old and I own my first house, I now realize I didn't even notice that I painted my home the same soft white magenta pink. And it's like, this is the biofeedback loop of just imitating at its repressed level, or reacting, being the victim and saying, my mom is the reason that I'm this way. All of that is necessary because when we essentially sit still and recognize these patterns and these mental patterns, these behavioral patterns, this feedback loop of aka Virgo, we then can essentially transcend that loop itself. And that's when we start allowing ourselves to use our imagination creatively. And once we begin to do that, little by little, we begin to take this onion, which represents pain right now. And this onion, not only does it bring a sense of calm to everybody's neurotic, overly idealistic version of Virgo who happens to be this perfectionist, like I said, overly idealistic Virgo is like, ugh. If anything, Virgo is perfection in the sense that it is connected to God directly. It is a direct link from Earth to God. That is the only way that Virgo is perfect. Virgo is not perfect about any other matter. It is simply a neutral symbol, and only through neutrality can we connect ourselves to God. We can't connect to God by being overly excited, and we can't connect to God by being overly depressed. We may get glimpses of a spontaneous form of enlightenment in these high senses of positivity, or these high, at least very low states of grief and anxiety. We may reach glimpses through these frequencies. But until we maintain a neutrality of Mercury, where Virgo is exalted and Virgo is home in its domain, through neutrality, we can experience a constant state of what it feels like to be listening and in tune to God, and no longer listening to the thoughts that are listening to its own thoughts, aka the feedback loop. This is when, through our art forms, we will never be able to verbalize in any intellectual manner what God sounds like. But we will, in fact, be able to transmit the frequency of the voice of God, which Virgo is primarily responsible with in conjunction to Pisces. So while this opposition is here, you will very clearly start to recognize what are the things you've been doing on repeat, on repeat, on repeat, in order to mask your pain and no longer and never have ever experienced it. This is why my other Virgo full moon video, I labeled it sensitive chaos. And that's it. I asked God, what's the message? And there's no more. Thank you for being here. I love you all. I'll see you soon. I appreciate you. Vanessa, Leo Lover. Absolutely. Definitely hit the thumbs up and the likes button. Join the membership. We're meeting. We just met last Sunday, so we're going to meet 2 Sundays from now, I believe March 19th. We're actually talking Uranus. We're going through the planets. We're finishing the planets soon. And then we're going to dig deeper into these frequencies that I'm speaking now about these zodiacs, as well as talking consistently about which gates are active transits are activating certain human design gene keys gates, like I just expressed today. This is a personal favorite. I feel like I'm officially talking back as Pernell Bobby in this moment and stepping out of those other frequencies. So embrace the confusion in whatever area of Virgo of your chart, because that is exactly how you're going to reach divine creativity. Love.